Weather on the Ones is brought to you by 2020 Eyeglass Superstore. Building relationships through quality eyewear. A frame for every face and a price for any budget. Daily at 2020 Eyeglass Superstore.
Get the umbrellas out. This weekend, a tropical wave will be moving over us, bringing us showers. And our severe weather experts are tracking this tropical storm Ernesto. You'll see where the storm is heading and how strong it is right now. Plus, a cop caught breaking the law. DeLand police say one of its own officers was caught on camera stealing from a thrift store. And this gun-wielding robber who barged into a supermarket manager's office got the money he wanted, and the police have the video they need to get him.
All local, all the time. You're watching News 13 with Yvette Bruce-Wall and meteorologist Dave Cacciarella. This is News 13 Primetime.
Plus, you better have your phone when you head to a very popular beach this weekend. It's not to call for help. It's actually to pay for parking. More on that in a moment. Hi, everybody. I'm Yvette Bruce-Wall. It is Friday night. Get ready. Showers this weekend and tracking Ernesto. Weather on the Ones time with severe weather expert Dave Cacciarella.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. We do want to start out with that thumbnail on Ernesto. Ernesto now in the south and eastern Caribbean, the far eastern Caribbean, just across the Windward Islands earlier today, steaming west across the Caribbean through the weekend and then on off toward the Yucatan to the middle of next week. Very likely moving into the western Gulf of Mexico and intensifying Thursday and Friday. But this track across the Caribbean, keeping it as a moderately strength to strong tropical storm. But again, about 600 to 700 miles south of us. Now, we do have a wave at the surface, and that would be considered a tropical wave or an easterly wave associated with a tremendous amount of moisture that does have to wash over the peninsula. And yes, once this gets out into the Gulf of Mexico, not tomorrow, but Monday and Tuesday, it could slowly organize. But the rain associated with this is what we're going to see impact our weekend forecast. Showers this evening, rain overnight tonight along the coastline, heavier activity for Saturday and Sunday afternoons. Essentially a cloudy, wet weekend forecast, but drier weather in the outlook for next week. We'll get the full details, of course, on the tropics coming up at 21 and 51 minutes after the hour with your weather on the Ones.
A police officer arrested in Volusia County accused of stealing from a Goodwill store, and investigators say they have the surveillance tape to prove it. News 13's Margaret Kavanaugh joining us from DeLand. So, Margaret, you've learned new information about that officer, Bryce Miller?
That's right, Yvette. This is a copy of the internal investigation report that was done. We received this from DeLand Police. We know this officer was about to be fired, but he decided to retire after 23 years on the job. Take a look at this video that we received from police officers. You can see Officer Miller in the back. Now, this all happened in May in the back of the Goodwill store over on North Woodland Boulevard in DeLand. He was on duty when this occurred. You can see him putting several items into the back of his patrol car, then you see him take off. Police say there are signs in the back of the store clearly indicating that no items are to be removed. The store manager notified police, and authorities say that when Officer Miller was confronted, he says he was told by an employee that he was allowed to take the items and give them to people in the community that needed them. But after months of investigating, DeLand police officials say his story did not add up.
It's a matter of public trust. It's unacceptable behavior, and as the chief put it earlier, we're not going to tolerate it. It's an embarrassment for our agency and the entire law enforcement community as a whole.
Goodwill leaders did not want to press charges. Miller has not been arrested for any criminal behavior, but now the Florida Department of Law Enforcement will review the case. Now, that spot where you saw him in the video, that's a drop-off location where people can come and drop off old furniture or old clothes, anything that they want to donate to Goodwill. Now, Goodwill says that they discourage people from dropping things off at night, but that it happens. But they do say there is that sign in the back that says people who are caught taking things will be prosecuted to the full extent. In DeLand, Margaret Kavanaugh, News 13.
Destination Space and NASA has teamed up with 3 companies with one goal in mind: to get astronauts back into space. Boeing, SpaceX, and a company called Sierra Nevada will work together on developing a replacement for the Space Shuttle program. Right now, NASA relies on Russian Soyuz spacecraft to get to and from the ISS, and that costs a lot of money. So NASA is paying $1 billion to the 3 space companies to find a replacement. NASA hopes to get astronauts to the ISS on its own in 5 years.
Our commercial crew and cargo efforts are based on a simple but powerful principle. By investing in American companies and American ingenuity, we're spurring free market competition to give taxpayers more bang for the buck, while enabling NASA to do what we do best, reach for the heavens.
And that's part of the NASA new mandate to eventually launch astronauts on deep space missions in the coming decades. Each of the three companies have to meet NASA milestones. We're covering more county-by-county news in Brevard County. Take a look. This robber tied up an Aldi supermarket employee and stole money from the store's safe. The surveillance video shows the robber took money from the safe and got away. Call Crime Line if you can ID the robber. Get ready to go shopping this weekend. As of today through Sunday, you won't have to pay taxes on most of your back-to-school shopping supplies thanks to the Florida Department of Revenue's sales tax holiday. Here we go. Here's some of the items on the list. Most school supplies under $15, backpacks, book bags, and purses under $75. Clothes and shoes also under $75. To see a complete list of everything that's excluded there from getting taxed, go to our website, cfnews13.com/school, and look for the 2012 sales tax holiday section. Also, News 13 sponsoring a back-to-school expo tomorrow at the Seminole Town Center from 10 to 3. We'll be giving away News 13 lunch bags and prizes. You can also see the latest trends during a fashion show and even pet animals from the Central Florida Zoo. Early voting begins tomorrow in Flagler County, giving voters 8 days to get a jump start on the August 14th primary. Our residents can cast ballots at any of the 2 Flagler sites within the county. Take a look. Polls are set to open at 10 a.m. Early voting also begins tomorrow in Volusia County. Polls at their 5 sites will open at 8:30 in the morning. For a complete list of all the early voting locations across Central Florida, head on over to cfnews13.com/election. And now covering Brevard County, prepare to have your cell phone and credit card number with you if you're heading to the beach this weekend. Cocoa Beach is trying out a plan right now, listen to this, to pay for parking with your cell phone. News 13's Jerry Hume says not everybody is on board with the idea.
Forget the change. If you want to park in downtown Cocoa Beach, just make sure you've got your cell phone.
Please enter the number of hours you wish to park.
Starting this weekend, drivers who park between 1st Street South and 1st Street North on A1A and nearby on the Minuteman Causeway will have to pay by phone for parking space time. Ted Taylor owns a business on A1A. He's not happy.
I think it's absolutely stupid. I mean, to call and park, I've never heard of it. I don't know why they're doing it. We don't have a problem here really with parking. You may have to look around a little bit, but for something like this, I mean, what if you don't have a phone?
The answer? You're out of luck.
If you don't have a cell phone, park at a meter. It takes quarters.
If paying by phone isn't high-tech enough for you, the parking company Park Now also has an app. All you got to do is scan the code and pay that way. A Park Now representative spent Friday teaching parking enforcement the ins and outs of the new program. The city engineer says it's targeted at tourists who park in the area because it's close to the beach.
Times are rough. Budgets are getting smaller and smaller. Cities are trying to find creative ways to generate revenue, so we've decided that this is an opportunity. We have a lot of visitors from out of town, a lot of tourists. We're trying to find a way to capture that revenue.
The program is only being tested this month and the next. The city will review the results and input from the public before going full throttle with the parking plan. In Cocoa Beach, Jerry Hume, News 13.
Pay by phone parking will only be on weekends and holidays. Signs, by the way, are posted to help drivers on how to pay. Still ahead on News 13, it's often a long road to recovery for cancer patients. And hitting the road to get to medical appointments and chemo treatments might be very difficult for those who don't drive. We'll tell you how you can get behind the wheel and help out. But first, it may not be a good weekend to go to the beach after all. It's because of this tropical wave. Our severe weather experts are tracking also the very latest on Ernesto. And that's coming up with a look at your weather on the ones, only on News 13.
10 years ago, Parker was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia. He is a cancer survivor. However, Parker is among the 70% of kids who are facing long-term effects from the very treatment that saved them.
Now I have skin cancer.
You can help kids like Parker by purchasing a $100 raffle ticket to win my personal Corvette. Your support funds research for new cures and safer treatments. Visit JeffGordonChildren'sFoundation.org to purchase your ticket and learn more about Parker's journey.
Hi, I'm attorney Dan Newland, former sheriff's detective. Service has always been a very important part of my life. That's why today I continue to proudly serve our community as a sworn reserve deputy sheriff. If you ever find yourself involved in a car accident anywhere in Central Florida, and you're looking for an experienced attorney that's committed to service, community, and you, call me directly. I'd be honored to personally help you with your accident case at 407-888-8000.
Now, your accurate Weather on the Ones forecast with live digital Doppler X3 radar.
All right, your weather on the ones here at Central Florida, News 13, and Tropical Storm Ernesto entering the southeastern Caribbean earlier today, making its way west across the Caribbean and through this weekend and into the early part of next week. Expected to stay well to the south of the Florida Peninsula as it eventually Wednesday and Thursday of next week moves on out into the western Gulf of Mexico, where it may actually intensify quite a bit. We also have a wave near the Bahamas and a wave way out in the eastern Atlantic. We're going to talk about all that in detail with your tropical update at 21 and 51 minutes after the hour. There is the wave near the Bahamas, and yes, there's an opportunity for this to develop, but it's not expected to happen until this whole thing moves out into the Gulf of Mexico and away from us. The problem is between now and then, when it might develop in the Gulf of Mexico, it does have to move over us, and all this moisture is associated with this weak surface feature. So as it moves across the peninsula, really tomorrow and Sunday, we're going to see enhanced moisture, more cloud cover and east wind, and a much better chance of rain in the forecast than we have seen in recent days. Now, today, we already had some of that moisture. We had an upper level low that's kind of moving across the area, aided by an upper high off to the north and west, and a strong northeast component to the steering flow, pushed some very strong storms down the I-4 corridor throughout the middle of the afternoon today. What we are left with for many parts of Central Florida right now is clouds and some light rain, the heavier thunderstorm activity on the west side of the peninsula, but you can see this action off to our east. This is going to continue to move toward the coastline, arriving during the overnight hours. So overnight we'll keep showers for the coastal counties, and then those showers will translate inland throughout the morning hours on Saturday, and leaving us with a fairly wet and cloudy Saturday afternoon with the possibility of some stronger thunderstorms. There's that surface feature again. It has to move over the Florida Peninsula this weekend before it can get out into the Gulf of Mexico, where it will possibly develop. The chances are still low, but there is a possibility. So for tonight, mostly cloudy skies, warm and humid conditions, scattered showers kind of all evening long, mainly rain, and then some heavier rain along the coast, particularly south of the Cape overnight tonight. With the cloud cover in place tomorrow, temperatures expected only in the upper 80s, middle to upper 80s. Some spots will get into the low 90s depending on just how much of that sunshine you do get. But we are definitely expecting rain chances to be higher, up at around 60% for our Saturday and for our Sunday. So anywhere you look in your county by county forecast, you can expect at least a little bit of rain. So 7-day forecast has that 60% chance of rain for a Saturday and Sunday. Lower rain chances next week as we watch our wave now over the Bahamas move through the Gulf of Mexico, and we also watch Ernesto during this time frame move well to the south of us. Golfers look for wet weather in the forecast throughout the afternoon hours tomorrow, and then again for the pollen count, it continues to creep up. Surfers and east wind may kick up a little bit of swell. We'll talk about your boating forecast and the full tropical update coming up with your weather on the ones.
In a News 13 special assignment, the battle against cancer wages on, and so does the effort to help get patients to their treatments. And now there's a plea for volunteers to drive patients to chemotherapy appointments as part of a program called Road to Recovery. News 13's Greg Pallone explains how you can get behind the wheel to help out.
Is meaningful because you see the direct impact when someone gets in your car and when someone talks to you about their family and about what they're going through. It's a direct impact and you feel it.
Titusville's Elaine Johnson lost her mother to breast cancer more than a decade ago, but was able, through her teaching job's flexibility, to take her to appointments before she passed away. That's why she's a volunteer driver now to help those who have no one to rely on.
I was there. I was able to take her to the doctor. I was able to be with her at her chemo, at her, at her radiation. And all I could think about is if my mother had not had me.
Many patients are told by their doctors they aren't allowed to drive, and many don't have family or friends in the area who can take them to multiple visits each day or week. Some cancer treatments can last for hours. The need is great. In the metro Orlando area, there are nearly 10,000 newly diagnosed cancer patients. That compared to just 67 drivers. On the east coast of Brevard, Flagler, and Volusia counties, there are 7,200 patients with a mere 184 drivers.
One day I had like 3 appointments, and he picked me up at 7 in the morning.
Edith Plancart's cancer, fortunately, is in remission right now and says she's so grateful for the driver who helped her. He was due back home around 4 that afternoon for a personal commitment. When the last appointment was running long, she called her daughter up north, concerned she wouldn't have a ride home.
He heard me. He was sitting in the lobby, in the hallway, and he heard me. And he came over right to me and he said, "Don't worry, I will never leave you here."
If you have the time, the reward, you won't even be able to describe to your family and friends.
In Brevard County, Greg Pallone, News 13.
Well, to volunteer or get more information, we have a link on our website, cfnews13.com.
Brooke Bennett with your Toyota Sports Minute Olympic edition. Day 7 of 8 in swimming had to be the most thrilling for me to watch. 15-year-old Katie Ledecky joins the gold medal club in American record time. The 800 free event has not been won by the U.S. since 2000. And then Michael Phelps ends his solo races with gold in the 100 fly, now owning 2 events as a three-peat. More swimming, 200 back is golden for Missy Franklin in world record time. And the men's 50 free, Cullen Jones sprints to silver. The USA women's soccer advances to the Olympic semis with their 2-0 win over New Zealand. And women's water polo, they continue their trek for a medal, beating out China. Check out BHSN.com, a London headquarters, with articles and medal standings. But now here's Adam Kohler with the rest of sports.
All right, thank you, Brooke. The Gators camp began today with an unexpected resignation. Wide receivers coach and recruiting coordinator Aubrey Hill is leaving the program for what the team is calling personal reasons. Now, Hill was previously an assistant coach at Miami, and his name's been brought up in the ongoing NCAA investigation of the Hurricane football program. Head coach Will Muschamp will have a graduate assistant coach the wide receivers this year. And who's throwing to those wide receivers is the biggest concern for Gator fans right now, as Jacoby Brissett and Jeff Driscoll enter camp battling for that quarterback job. But to hear how both players are dealing with the competition, check out our website, BHSN.com.
This guy right here is named Rhythm. Yes, we're talking about a cat. He belongs to John of the Tampa Bay area. The feline has figured out that this pouncing makes quite a splash on this new gadget. John's also a drummer, and you're bound to see clips of him rocking out a little later on. Okay, so if you have a cute pet who might enjoy a little attention, send your clip to You On Demand. By the way, the one and only Tony Little hosting the show on Central Florida On Demand, channel 300. So capture those pets and upload the video to YouOnDemand.com. We also have an incentive for you to share your most memorable moments with Central Florida On Demand. Submit a video for You On Demand and you might win a Tony Little Health Rider Twist. Submit your video via the web, email, or DVD for a chance to win. Visit YouOnDemand.com for full sweepstakes rules and start recording. Coming up on News 13.
For the first time ever, you can get this close to the Launchpad 39A. I'm On Demand's Allison Walker. I'll take you inside places you've never seen before at the Kennedy Space Center.
Allison Walker always getting the good assignments. Okay, our severe weather experts are tracking stormy weather and more on the way this weekend, thanks to a tropical wave that you see right there. Your county by county forecast plus the latest on when Ernesto could become a hurricane. That's next in your accurate Weather on the Ones forecast next.
Now, your accurate Weather on the Ones Tropical Storm Ernesto update.
All right, well, here's your first look at Ernesto out in the Eastern Caribbean, expected to move across the Caribbean through this weekend and into the middle of next week, approaching the Yucatan Peninsula as a strengthening Category 1 hurricane, then on off into the western Gulf of Mexico Thursday and Friday, very likely to intensify. We're going to get the full details on Ernesto now for you. There is a system in the last 12 hours that's come out of the Atlantic and into the Caribbean and now continues to essentially move move off to the west fairly quickly, and as long as it continues to move on at this 21-mile-per-hour rate, it's going to have a tough time doing much in the way of organization or intensification. However, eventually it's going to move into a weakness in the steering flow. It's going to slow down and then begin to intensify. Models have been very both persistent and consistent in taking it almost just due west here through, well, this looks like a Monday early in the morning. And so we're going to see it staying well to the south of Hispaniola, well to the south of Puerto Rico, and just to the south of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. And again, a lot of consensus with the models. Beyond Monday into Tuesday, we start to see some divergence. The outliers bringing it into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, but still heading over toward Louisiana. And that is only one of the global models. Virtually all the other ones taking it into the Yucatan and then out into the western Gulf of Mexico, where it will very likely intensify. So the official Hurricane Center track, again, this is just kind of a relook. There you have it through Sunday in the afternoon. Some slow, Saturday that is, there is into Sunday. Some slow strengthening south of Jamaica on Sunday afternoon, south of the Caymans on Monday afternoon, and then south of western Cuba as we work into Tuesday afternoon. Here it's going to transition over Cancun and the northern Yucatan Peninsula, and Wednesdays into Thursday as it heads out into the Gulf of Mexico, very likely intensifying. So that's what we're really seeing with our friend Ernesto. This is this wave just off the Florida Peninsula that is going to bring us all this wet weather. The expectation over the next day or so is it's going to move across the peninsula of Florida and then out toward the North Gulf Coast. In this time frame out in the Gulf of Mexico, it may certainly show some level of intensification and organization, but what it's going to do for us is essentially bring wet weather to our forecast. And no real tropical organization, but a lot of rain, perhaps as early as late tonight and right on through this weekend. Now, this is the west coast of Africa, the Cape Verde Islands, and we're getting into the Cape Verde season. This is also under investigation, but as we look at the long-range models on it, it really just takes this system out into the middle of the Atlantic and does what a lot of systems that start out near Cape Verde do, just turns them, causes recurving, and keeps it well away from North America. So 3 separate systems to watch, and again, this wave that is just off the coast of the Bahamas, the one we've talked an awful lot about, is going to keep us cloudy and at times wet this evening. I don't think we're going to take the clouds out, not all evening long, and we're going to add rain to the forecast, particularly overnight along the coastline, perhaps some heavy rain south of the Cape. Tomorrow, showers in the forecast, partly to mostly cloudy skies. Temperatures in the upper 80s and low 90s, significantly lower than they have been recently because, again, we are talking about more cloud cover in the forecast, but enough humidity to still make it feel like it's up around 100 degrees. So your 7-day forecast has a solid opportunity for rain on Saturday and on Sunday as this wave just off the Bahamas literally washes over with its moisture over the Florida Peninsula Saturday and Sunday. On Monday and Tuesday, that wave is moving west through the Caribbean, so our conditions will improve back to more typical for the early part of August, but that system may then take on some tropical components, but again, nothing that would have a direct impact on our weather. There is your boating forecast, some isolated showers and storms as we work to the next day or so. We're going to keep an eye on all of that. Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll talk about your surfcast and your golfcast, but right now it is live digital Doppler X3.
And now, moving on to your On the Town report. You can now get closer than ever before to a few pieces of space history. Central Florida On Demand's Allison Walker shows us the new tours at the Kennedy Space Center.
For the very first time in Kennedy Space Center history, visitors can get this close. We're talking a quarter of a mile away from Launch Pad 39A, where the shuttles and the Apollo Saturn V moon rockets were launched.
3, 2, and liftoff.
Usually kept back miles away from this, people can now take a bus inside the perimeter security fence and onto the grounds of Launch Pad 39A, the same one used for all 6 moon landings.
It does feel really special to be part of it, be here, because you see it on the news and sort of feel so familiar with it.
3.5 miles away is the launch director's desk. This is firing room 4 inside the Launch Control Center, the second most recent up-close tour to open. This is where all 21 space shuttle launches since 2006 were controlled.
I literally have people stand out here with tears in their eyes and say, "I can't believe I'm here."
So there's the countdown clock. And what are we counting down to again?
That countdown clock is always counting down to something. So I will look at that as it's counting down to the future.
The third Up Close tour takes you inside the largest single-story building in the world, the Vehicle Assembly Building. This is where shuttles Atlantis and Endeavour will take turns hanging out before they're put on permanent display. Notice how Atlantis is filthy. NASA chose to leave it as is so that visitors could see up close just what it went through.
We remember all Challenger and things like that, so you kind of get a sense of how dangerous and groundbreaking it was.
At the Kennedy Space Center, I'm On Demand's Allison Walker for News 13.
Meanwhile, in other on-the-town news, we've learned a pair of Las Vegas headliners are coming to Universal's Halloween Horror Nights in the brand new haunted attraction starring Penn and Teller. Sin City is covered with nuclear ooze. More details on our website, cfnews13.com/entertainment.
All local, all the time. News 13, exclusively on Bright House Networks.